The penthouse was silent, dangerously silent for a place that housed both a child and New York's most wanted man. Do-yoon's son stood in the shadowed hallway, his hand moving instinctively toward the Glock beneath his suit jacket. Silence in his world meant ambush or death. But what he heard next made him freeze. Mommy. The word floated through the nursery door. Fragile, broken, impossible. His hand fell from the gun. Through the gap, he saw his son Jum, paralyzed and silent since birth, sitting in his chair. The boy's eyes were fixed on Bella Atkins, the black maid from Detroit who'd arrived 4 weeks ago. She knelt on the floor in her uniform, red cleaning gloves bright against the muted room. Both hands extended toward Jum like an offering. "That's right, baby," Bella whispered. "I'm right here." Jum's hand trembled upward, a movement neurologists said would never happen. His mouth struggled. Mom. My. Do-yoon's back hit the wall. For 3 years, Manhattan's best specialists had declared his son hopeless, millions spent. Doctors from Seoul to Switzerland. Nothing. But now, in his fortress with bulletproof windows and armed guards, the impossible was happening. His son was calling this stranger, hired to clean and fold laundry, Mommy. Bella hadn't seen him. Her focus stayed on Jum, her face holding pure joy, no fear, no calculation. "Your mama would be so proud," she murmured. The mention of Bora, dead 3 years, blood he couldn't wash away, sent a knife through his chest. He retreated into shadows where he belonged. The word followed. Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. It echoed like a verdict, like hope. And in his world, hope was the most dangerous weapon. Do-yoon's son had survived gang wars and assassination attempts, but this one word from his silent son was about to undo him completely. 3 years earlier, Do-yoon had held his newborn son while his wife died on an operating table 6 floors below his penthouse. The emergency C-section had gone wrong, catastrophically wrong, and Bora had bled out before the surgeons could stop it. He'd stood outside the operating room with Jum wrapped in hospital blankets, watching through reinforced glass as they tried to restart her heart. The machines had flatlined, the doctors had stepped back, and Do-yoon had made a choice that would haunt him forever. He'd walked away with his son and never looked back at her body. The guilt had turned to stone inside his chest. Jum's diagnosis came 48 hours later. Severe cerebral palsy, oxygen deprivation during the complicated birth, paralyzed from the waist down, nonverbal. The neurologist, a Korean man who'd studied at Johns Hopkins, had delivered the news in careful, clinical language that meant one thing. Your son will never have a normal life. Do-yoon had responded the only way he knew how. He'd thrown money at the problem. Specialists flew in from Seoul, their credentials impeccable, their promises hollow. Physical therapists from Manhattan's most exclusive practices came and went, their optimism fading after months of zero progress. He'd had the penthouse renovated, medical equipment installed in every room, ramps built, specialized furniture imported from Germany. The nursery looked more like an intensive care unit than a child's room. None of it worked. Jum remained locked inside himself, his dark eyes staring at nothing, his small body unresponsive to every technique, every treatment, every desperate attempt to reach him. The penthouse became a fortress, bulletproof glass on every window, armed guards rotating shifts at every entrance, security cameras in every hallway except Jum's room. Do-yoon had drawn the line there, though he couldn't say why. Maybe because watching his son's stillness on a monitor felt like admitting defeat. His world outside these walls was violence and territory. K-Town operations that stretched from Flushing to Midtown, protection rackets that kept neighborhood businesses safe, for a price. Shipments that moved through ports his organization controlled. Doyen had built his empire on calculated risk and absolute loyalty, and it had made him one of the most feared men in New York's Korean underworld. But power meant nothing when his son couldn't recognize his face. He'd learned to compartmentalize. Business happened in his office or in the backs of restaurants where his word was law. Fatherhood happened in stolen moments when he'd sit beside Jum's chair and talk to him about nothing, knowing the boy couldn't understand. The two worlds never touched. Grief became strategy. Loss became control. He'd turned his pain into an empire because empires didn't bleed. Won-shik had been there through all of it. His lieutenant, his right hand, the man who'd stood beside him for 8 years through territorial wars and federal investigations. Won-shik was sharp, efficient, and utterly loyal, or so Doyen had believed. He was always in the shadows during meetings, always watching, always ready to execute orders without question. When Bora died, Won-shik had helped arrange the funeral, kept the business running, made sure Doyen didn't fall apart publicly. "You need staff," Won-shik had said 4 weeks ago, his tone neutral. "Someone to help with the boy. The nurses aren't enough." Doyen had nodded, distracted by reports of a rival gang moving into their territory. "Find someone, discreet. Someone who won't ask questions." Won-shik had handled it. He always handled things. Bella Atkins had arrived on a Tuesday morning with a single suitcase and references from Detroit that Doyen hadn't bothered to verify. She was younger than the other staff, mid-20s maybe, with her hair pulled back in a neat bun and an expression that suggested she'd seen worse than armed men in expensive suits. She'd nodded at the security protocols, signed the NDAs without reading them, and started work immediately. Doyen had barely noticed her. She was just another person in a penthouse full of people who moved through his life like ghosts, necessary but invisible. He'd been wrong about that. Now, standing in the hallway with his son's impossible words still ringing in his ears, Doyen realized he'd missed something crucial. While he'd been building walls, Bella had been breaking through them. While he'd been drowning in grief, she'd been teaching his son to speak. The question that terrified him wasn't how she'd done it. It was why someone like her, someone with no connection to his world, no reason to care about a paralyzed boy in a fortress, had succeeded where everyone else had failed. Before we go any further, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Because what Bella did next, what she uncovered in that penthouse, is going to change everything you think you know about healing and hope. Don't miss what happens when Doyen finally confronts her. Doyen didn't sleep. He'd spent the night in his office, replaying the moment on an endless loop. The word. The reaching. The way Jum's eyes had tracked Bella like she was the only real thing in his world. By dawn, the city stretched beneath his windows in shades of gray and gold, oblivious to the storm building inside him. His encrypted phone had buzzed with messages all night. Territory disputes, shipment schedules, problems that required his attention. He'd ignored everyone. At 7 a.m., he sent a message to Won-shik. "Bring the maid to my office." The response came immediately. "Now." Now. 20 minutes later, there was a knock. Won-shik entered first, his expression unreadable. Bella followed, still wearing her uniform, her red gloves tucked into her apron pocket. She looked tired but not afraid. That should have been his first clue. "Close the door," Doyen said. His voice came out harder than he'd intended. Won-shik obeyed, then positioned himself near the window, his usual spot during interrogations. Doyen gestured for Bella to sit in the chair across from his desk. She sat. Her posture was straight, hands folded in her lap. The office smelled of leather, whiskey, and the gun oil he used religiously. It was a room designed to intimidate, with dark wood and minimalist furniture that cost more than most people's cars. The Glock in his desk drawer was loaded. The one under his jacket was always within reach. Bella looked at him with steady brown eyes that held no fear, only curiosity. "What did you do to my son?" The question came out like an accusation. She didn't flinch. "I talked to him." "Talked?" "Yes, sir." Doyen leaned forward, his fingers interlaced on the desk. "For 3 years, the best specialists in Manhattan have told me my son can't understand language. His brain doesn't process speech. He's locked inside himself." His voice dropped. "And you're telling me you just talked to him?" "I talked to him like he could understand," Bella said calmly. "Because he can." The simplicity of it was insulting. "I've hired neurologists from Korea, therapists who studied at the best universities in the world. I've spent millions." "Maybe the best isn't what he needed," Bella interrupted, her voice still gentle but firm. "Maybe he just needed someone who wasn't afraid of the silence." The words hit him like a physical blow. Won-shik shifted slightly by the window, his expression unreadable. Doyen's jaw tightened. "You're a maid. You clean floors. You have no medical training, no credentials, no right to—" "I have eyes," Bella said. "And I have time. That's all it took." Time. He wanted to throw something. Instead, he gripped the edge of his desk. "I've given him 3 years." "You've given him money," she said quietly. "That's not the same thing." The silence that followed was volcanic. Won-shik's hand moved slightly toward his jacket, a protective instinct Doyen recognized. But Doyen raised one finger. "Stand down." "You have no idea what I've sacrificed for that boy," Doyen said, his voice low and dangerous. "You're right. I don't." Bella's gaze didn't waver. "But Jum knows, and he's been waiting for someone to see him as more than a diagnosis." Doyen stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. He turned to face the window, his back to both of them. The city sprawled below, his territory, his kingdom. From here, he controlled thousands of lives. He made decisions that could end careers, end bloodlines. But he couldn't control this woman's quiet defiance. "What exactly have you been doing with him?" he asked without turning. "Reading, singing, holding his hand when he gets scared." Her voice was steady. "I talk to him about his mother. I tell him stories about Detroit. I ask him questions even though he can't answer yet. Yet, he will. He's already started." Doyen turned back to face her. "The word he said yesterday." "Mommy," Bella finished. "Yes, sir. He's been practicing for days. It's hard for him. His muscles don't cooperate, but he's trying." "Why that word?" The question tore out of him. "Why not? Why not something else?" Bella's expression softened. "Because I told him about my mama. How she worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. How she never gave up on me even when things got hard." She paused. "I think he understood what that meant. Someone who shows up. Someone who stays." The implication was clear. "Unlike you." Won-shik spoke for the first time, his tone careful. "Sir, perhaps we should consult with Dr. Kim before—" "No." Doyen's voice was flat. He looked at Bella. "You were hired to clean. That's your job description." "Yes, sir." "You are not authorized to treat my son. I'm not treating him. I'm talking to him. Don't do anything with him without my permission." Bella stood slowly. "With respect, sir, I'll keep doing what I've been doing, because it's working. And if you want me to stop, you'll have to fire me." The audacity of it stunned him. In his world, people didn't talk back. They obeyed or they disappeared. But this woman from Detroit, with no protection and no power, was standing in his office and drawing a line he couldn't cross without becoming the monster everyone thought he was. Won-shik's hand moved again, closer to his jacket. Do-yoon shook his head once. "No. Get out," he said to Bella. She nodded, turned, and walked to the door. Her hand was on the handle when he spoke again. "If anything happens to him, nothing will happen to him," Bella said without looking back. "I promise you that." She left. The door closed with a soft click. Won-shik waited a beat, then said, "Sir, she's insubordinate. We should nothing." Do-yoon sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "She got my son to speak, Won-shik. Something no one else could do. That doesn't mean we can trust her. I don't trust anyone." He looked up at his lieutenant. "But I'm going to give her a chance, because if there's even a possibility she can reach him." Won-shik's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation. Assessment. "Understood, sir." After he left, Do-yoon sat alone in his office, staring at the door Bella had walked through. His world was built on control, on knowing every variable, every threat, every weakness. But this woman had become a variable he couldn't calculate. And that terrified him more than any rival gang ever could. 2 days later, Do-yoon set up a test. He needed to see it for himself, not through a cracked door, not from the shadows, but directly. If Bella had genuinely reached his son, he had to know how. And if this was some kind of manipulation, some angle he hadn't identified yet, he needed to know that too. He had Jum brought to the main living area, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The furniture was modern and expensive, chosen by an interior designer Bora had hired before she died. Everything was white and gray and cold. The medical staff assembled, 2 nurses who'd been with Jum since birth, a physical therapist who came 3 times a week, and Dr. Kim, the neurologist who delivered the original diagnosis. Won-shik stood by the entrance, arms crossed, watching everything. Jum sat in his specialized chair, his small body supported by custom cushioning. His eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing in particular. He wore a blue shirt that made his skin look pale. Do-yoon stood 10 feet away, observing. "Jum," Dr. Kim said gently, kneeling in front of the chair. "Can you look at me?" Nothing. The boy's gaze didn't shift. Dr. Kim glanced at Do-yoon, his expression apologetic, then tried again. "Jum, it's Dr. Kim. Can you show me your hand?" Still nothing. One of the nurses stepped forward with a colorful toy, something with buttons that made noise. She pressed one, and a cheerful melody played. "Jum, sweetie, look at this. Isn't it fun?" The boy's eyes remained distant. The physical therapist tried next, using techniques Do-yoon had watched fail 100 times before. Gentle touches, soft encouragement, questions designed to elicit any response. Jum might as well have been alone in the room. Do-yoon felt the familiar weight settling in his chest, the confirmation that nothing had changed, that yesterday had been a fluke, a moment of wishful thinking. Then he said, "Bring in Bella." Won-shik moved to the intercom, spoke quietly. A minute later, Bella entered through the main doorway. She was still in her uniform, her red gloves tucked away. She looked at the assembled medical staff with mild surprise, then at Jum. Her entire demeanor changed. She walked directly to the boy, not hurried but purposeful. She knelt beside his chair, not in front of him like Dr. Kim had, but beside him, at his level. "Hey, baby," she said softly, her Detroit accent warm and unhurried. "I didn't know we were having a party today." Jum's eyes moved. Just slightly, but they moved. Tracking toward her voice. The room went completely still. Bella reached out and gently touched his hand. You doing okay? All these people making you nervous? Jum's fingers twitched. Then his mouth moved, struggling to form a shape. Take your time, Bella murmured. Ain't nobody rushing you. Then, in halting Korean that she'd clearly been practicing, she said, Iyamaga yogi iso. Mommy's here. Jum's face transformed. His lips pulled into something that wasn't quite a smile but was close enough to break Doyen's heart. A small sound came from his throat. Not a word, but an attempt at one. Bella smiled, and it was genuine, full of pride. That's right. You're doing so good. Dr. Kim leaned forward, his professional mask slipping into something like wonder. I've never seen him respond like this. He responds when he feels safe, Bella said, not looking away from Jum. She switched back to English, her voice gentle. Don't you, sweetheart? You just needed somebody who wasn't afraid to wait. Jum made another sound, this one closer to a syllable. His right hand lifted slightly, trembling with effort, reaching toward Bella's face. She didn't move. She let him touch her cheek, his small fingers brushing her skin. I'm here, she whispered. I'm always gonna be here. Doyen couldn't breathe. He'd spent 3 years watching his son exist in a void, unreachable and unreached. And now, in his own living room, with medical staff who'd declared the situation hopeless, Jum was present, responding, trying. Wonshik's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. Doyen recognized that look. It was the expression Wonshik wore when identifying a weakness in enemy territory. But this wasn't enemy territory. This was his son. His family. Dr. Kim, Doyen said, his voice rougher than intended. Your assessment? The neurologist stood slowly, his gaze still fixed on Jum and Bella. This contradicts everything we understood about his condition. He's tracking her voice, responding to her presence, attempting vocalization. He paused, searching for words. It's medically improbable, but it's happening, one of the nurses said quietly. Yes. Dr. Kim looked at Doyun. It's happening. Doyun walked closer, each step measured. Bella glanced up at him, her expression calm but watchful. Jum's attention remained on her. But when Doyun knelt beside them, the boy's eyes shifted slightly, acknowledging his father's presence for the first time Doyen could remember. He doesn't need another doctor, Doyen said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. He needs someone who sees him as more than a diagnosis. Bella's eyes met his. He needs someone who believes he's worth the time it takes. The implication stung because it was true. Doyen had spent 3 years throwing money at specialists while keeping emotional distance from his son. He'd told himself it was necessary, that getting too close would break him, that staying detached was the only way to survive the grief. But Bella had done the opposite. She'd gotten close. She'd invested time without expecting results. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. You can stay with him, Doyen said, unsupervised. Whatever time you need. Thank you, sir. But... He paused, choosing his words carefully. I want to be here sometimes, when you're working with him. I want to learn what you're doing. Bella's expression softened. He'd like that, having his appa here. The Korean word for father hit him harder than he expected. Wonshik shifted by the door, a small movement, but Doyen caught it. His lieutenant was filing this away, adding it to whatever calculations were running behind those sharp eyes. Let him calculate, Doyen thought. For the first time in 3 years, his son had smiled. Everything else could wait. Late that evening, after the medical staff had left and Wanshik had departed for business in Queens, Doyen sat in his office trying to focus on reports from their Flushing operations. The numbers blurred together. His mind kept returning to the living room, to Jum's attempt at speech, to the way Bella had known exactly how to reach him. Then he heard it, singing, soft and distant, floating down the hallway from Jum's room. The melody stopped him cold. It was Korean, a lullaby he hadn't heard in 3 years. Not since Bora had sung it, her hands resting on her pregnant belly, her voice sweet and slightly off-key. Doyen stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. He moved down the hallway without thinking, drawn by the sound of his dead wife's song coming from a woman who shouldn't know it. Jum's door was half open. Soft light spilled into the hallway. He stopped at the threshold. Bella sat in the rocking chair beside Jum's crib-style bed, holding a small leather-bound journal. She was reading from it, singing in halting Korean, her pronunciation careful but imperfect. The words were right, but her accent marked her as someone learning a language that wasn't hers. Jajang jajang uri aga. Sleep, sleep, my baby. Jum lay in his bed, eyes half closed, but his lips were moving, trying to follow the melody. Doyen's hand gripped the doorframe. He knew that journal. He'd bought it for Bora when she was 6 months pregnant, had it custom made with her initials embossed on the cover. She'd filled it with notes about the baby, recipes she wanted to try, lullabies she was learning from her mother in Seoul. After she died, he'd told the staff to pack everything away. He couldn't bear to see her handwriting, her plans for a future that would never happen. He'd thought everything was gone, donated or stored in a facility he never intended to visit. But Bella was holding it, reading from it, singing Bora's song to their son. "Where did you get that?" His voice came out harsher than he meant. Bella looked up, startled, but not afraid. "I found it, behind the medical equipment when I was cleaning. It was wedged between the wall and the oxygen tank." Doyen stepped into the room. "That belonged to my wife." "I know." Bella closed the journal carefully, holding it out to him. "I'm sorry. I should have asked before using it. When I found it and saw the songs, I thought Jum should hear them." He took the journal with trembling hands. The leather was worn at the edges, the pages slightly yellowed. He opened it to a random page and saw Bora's slanted handwriting, her notes in a mix of Korean and English. "Baby kicks so much at night. He's going to be a soccer player." Doyen felt him yesterday and almost cried. "He pretends to be tough, but I know he's soft inside. Our son will teach him that." The words blurred. Doyen blinked hard, forcing the tears back. He turned to another page and found the lullabies. Bora had written them out phonetically in English letters for someone who didn't read Hangul, with notes in the margins. "Sing this when he's scared. This one helps with sleep. This one is for when I'm not there. For when I'm not there." She'd known. Somehow, even before the emergency, before the complications, Bora had known she might not survive. And she'd left instructions for caring for their son in her absence. "She loved him so much," Bella said softly. "You can tell from every page. She wanted him to know her voice even if she wasn't here to sing it herself," Doyen finished. Bella nodded. "I've been using a translation app to learn them. My pronunciation is terrible, but Jum doesn't seem to mind." Doyen looked at his son. The boy's eyes were on him now, really seeing him, maybe for the first time. "You're singing her songs to him." His voice cracked. "You're giving him his mother's voice even though you never met her." "He deserves to know her," Bella said, "even if it comes through someone else." Doyen sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. His hand found Jum's small one, and for once, the boy didn't pull away. Instead, his fingers curled slightly around Doyen's thumb. The gesture broke something inside him. "She would have loved you for this," he whispered. Bella smiled gently. She loved him. That's what matters. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound Jum's steady breathing. Then the boy made a small noise. Not quite a word, but an attempt. His mouth moved, struggling with the shape. "What is it, baby?" Bella leaned closer. Jum tried again. His lips formed around a syllable, and then it came out. Barely audible but unmistakable. Oma. The Korean word for mother. Doyun's breath caught. Bella's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. "That's right. Ama. Your mama loved you so much." Jum's gaze moved to Doyun, then back to Bella, as if making a connection. "This is my father. You're teaching me about my mother." "She used to sing to you before you were born," Doyun said, his voice thick. "Every night. She'd sit in this room and talk to you like you could already hear her." "He can hear now," Bella said. "He's listening to both of you." Doyun looked at this woman, this stranger who'd walked into his fortress with nothing but a suitcase, and somehow found a piece of his wife he thought was lost forever. She'd taken Bora's words and breathed life into them, giving their son the mother's love he'd been denied. "I spent 3 years trying to forget her," he admitted. "I packed everything away because remembering hurt too much. I thought if I erased her from the house, I could function, keep going. But you can't erase love," Bella said. "It finds a way back. It always does." She was right. Bora's love was in this journal, in these lullabies, in the way Jum responded to her voice, even though she'd never held him outside the womb. Love didn't die with the body. It lingered in words and songs and the spaces between heartbeats. "Teach me," Doyun said suddenly. Bella looked at him, surprised. "The songs. Teach me how to sing them the way she wrote them. I need to be the one singing to him." Bella's smile was warm and knowing. He'd love that. "Let's start with this one." She opened the journal to a page marked with a faded ribbon. It's called Iomai Mom, Mother's Heart. They spent the next hour learning it together. Bella reading Bora's phonetic notes, Doyun correcting pronunciation, both of them fumbling through the melody until it started to sound right. Jum watched them with wide eyes, his small body relaxed in a way Doyun had never seen before. By the time they finished, it was past midnight. Jum had fallen asleep with a peaceful expression, his breathing steady and calm. Doyun stood, still holding the journal. "Thank you," he said to Bella, "for finding this, for caring enough to use it." "He's worth it," Bella said simply. As Doyun walked back to his office, the journal pressed against his chest. He felt something shifting inside him. The grief was still there. It would always be there. But for the first time since Bora's death, he felt connected to his son. Not through expensive treatments or medical interventions, but through the simple act of learning his mother's songs. Bella had done that. A maid from Detroit with no training and no reason to care had given him back a piece of his family. And that realization was both beautiful and terrifying. If this story is hitting you in the heart right now, hit that like button. Because what happens next, the darkness that's about to descend on this family, you need to be here for. Comment below, Team Bella or Team Doyun? Who's inspiring you more? Won-shik had been Doyun's second-in-command for 8 years. He'd started as an enforcer, good with his hands, better with a gun, smart enough to understand strategy. Over time, Doyun had promoted him, trusted him with operations that required discretion and ruthlessness in equal measure. Won-shik had never disappointed, until recently. It wasn't that Won-shik had changed. It was that Doyun had changed. Or rather, was beginning to change, and Won-shik saw it as weakness. He sat in his car outside a restaurant in Flushing, watching Do-yoon's territory through the windshield. This was the heart of their operation: restaurants, karaoke bars, massage parlors that were fronts for more lucrative businesses. Money flowed through these streets like blood through veins, and Won-shik knew every pathway. He also knew how vulnerable it had become. Do-yoon was distracted. The boss who used to respond to threats within hours now took days. The man who'd once executed a rival for insulting him now spent evenings in his son's nursery, learning lullabies from a maid. It was pathetic, and it was an opportunity. Won-shik's phone buzzed. A message from a blocked number. Tonight. Usual place. He started the car. 20 minutes later, he was in a warehouse on the edge of Queens, neutral territory, technically outside both organizations' control. The Cheongsan gang had requested this meeting 3 weeks ago, and Won-shik had been careful to keep it hidden from Do-yoon. 3 men waited inside. The leader, Park Jin-ho, was roughly Won-shik's age, with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. His reputation was brutal, even by their world standards. "You're late," Park said in Korean. "I had to make sure I wasn't followed." Won-shik stopped 10 feet away, keeping distance. "What do you want?" Park smiled, a thin, dangerous expression. "We want what you want. Do-yoon-sun's territory." "And why would I want that?" "Because you've been his dog for 8 years and you're tired of begging for scraps." Park lit a cigarette, the smoke curling in the warehouse's dim light. "We've been watching. Your boss is weak now. That crippled kid has made him soft." Won-shik's expression didn't change, but inside his mind raced. Park was right, but admitting it out loud was dangerous. Do-yoon's not weak. He's strategic. He's broken. Park stepped closer. His wife died, his son's useless, and now he's falling apart over a maid. We've seen the reports. He's spending less time managing operations and more time playing house. What's your offer? Park's smile widened. Help us remove him. We split the territory. You get K-Town, we get the ports. Everyone profits. Except Do-yoon. Do-yoon will be dead. Or locked up. Doesn't matter which. Won-shik considered this. He'd spent years building loyalty, earning trust, positioning himself as indispensable. Betraying Do-yoon now would mean severing every connection he'd cultivated. But it would also mean ascending to power he'd never achieve otherwise. Do-yoon would never step down, never retire, never make Won-shik an equal partner. The only way up was through betrayal. I'll need time, Won-shik said carefully. His security is tight. His people are loyal. We don't have time. Every day he recovers emotionally is a day we lose advantage. Park flicked ash on the floor. We need him vulnerable, distracted. He already is. Then make him more so. Park's eyes glinted. That Maid. She's his weak point now. Use her. Won-shik nodded slowly. Give me 2 weeks. You have 1. Park turned to leave, then paused. Don't disappoint us, Won-shik. We're not as forgiving as Do-yoon. Back at the penthouse, something was happening in Jum's room. Won-shik could hear it from the hallway as he returned from Queens. Excited voices, movement, something that sounded like celebration. He found Do-yoon standing in the doorway, his hand covering his mouth, shoulders shaking. Inside, Bella knelt beside Jum's chair. The boy's hand was extended toward her, trembling with effort. His mouth moved, forming shapes that had never come before. B. The sound struggled out. B. That's it, baby, Bella whispered, her eyes bright. You got it. Say my name. Jum's face scrunched with concentration, then, clear as morning light. Bella. Do-yoon made a sound, something between a laugh and a sob. He stumbled into the room, dropping to his knees beside his son's chair. You said her name. Jum, you said her name. Jum turned to his father. Recognition bright in his eyes. He said it again, stronger this time. Bella. Wonshik watched from the doorway, his face carefully neutral. Inside, he was calculating. This wasn't just progress. This was attachment, dependency. This was exactly what Park needed. Doyen pulled Bella into an embrace, inappropriate, unprofessional, completely unlike him. She stiffened for a moment, then relaxed. Her arms coming up to return it. He's finding his voice, she said softly, because you gave him space to try. When they separated, Doyen's face was wet. He didn't bother wiping it. Tell me about your mother, he said suddenly. Bella blinked, surprised. Sir? Your mother. You told Jum about her. I want to know. They sat together on the floor while Jum dozed in his chair, exhausted from the effort of speaking. Bella's voice was quiet, almost hesitant at first, then gaining strength. Her name is Margaret. She raised me alone in Detroit, East Side, where you don't walk after dark if you can help it. She worked 3 jobs most of my life. Maid service during the day, hotel cleaning at night, weekend shifts at a laundromat. Bella's hands twisted in her lap. I used to beg her to rest. She'd say, Baby, love is showing up. Every single day, even when you're tired, especially when you're tired. She sounds strong, Doyen said. She is. She taught me that the world's gonna try to make you invisible, gonna act like you don't matter because of where you're from or what you look like. But you matter anyway. You show up anyway. Bella looked at Jum. That's what I see when I look at him. Someone the world tried to make invisible. But he matters. He's always mattered. Doyen's chest tightened. You came here for her. To send money back. To send money back so she could finally rest. So she wouldn't have to work herself to death just to survive. Bella met his eyes. That's why I took this job. The pay was... It was more than I'd make in Detroit in 2 years. You're underpaid, Doyen said flatly. I'll triple it. Sir, you gave my son his voice back. You brought my wife's songs into his life. He stopped, something dangerous and vulnerable crossing his face. You made me remember what it feels like to hope. The silence stretched between them. Wonshik, still in the doorway, saw it clearly. The way Doyen looked at Bella wasn't just gratitude, it was something deeper. Something that made a man stupid. Perfect. I should let you rest, Bella said, standing. It's late. Doyen caught her hand. The touch lasted a second too long. Thank you. For everything. When she left, Doyen stayed on the floor beside his son, watching him sleep. Wonshik finally stepped into the room. Sir, he said carefully. The flushing situation requires your attention. It can wait. The shipment... I said it can wait. Doyen's voice was sharp, then softer. Did you see him, Wonshik? He said her name. I saw. Wonshik kept his tone neutral. It's remarkable progress. It's a miracle. Wonshik nodded, said nothing more. He didn't need to. The trap was already closing. Doyen had fallen in love, with his son's healing, with the woman making it happen, with the fantasy that his broken family could somehow be whole again. Men in love made mistakes. They prioritized feelings over strategy. They left themselves exposed. Wonshik left the room and pulled out his burner phone. 1 message to Park. 1 week. Start preparations. In Jum's room, Doyen sat in the darkness, unaware that his most trusted lieutenant had just signed his death warrant. The envelope appeared 3 days later, slipped under Bella's door sometime after midnight. She found it when she woke at dawn, a plain manila rectangle on the hardwood floor. No markings, no return address, just her name written in block letters across the front. Her hands shook as she opened it. The photograph inside stole her breath. Her mother, Margaret, standing outside their Detroit apartment building. The image was recent. Her mother wore the blue jacket Bella had sent her last month. She was carrying grocery bags, mid-step, completely unaware she was being watched. Someone had drawn a red crosshair over her face. The note was typed, impersonal. Leave New York, or she dies. You have 48 hours. Bella's knees gave out. She sat hard on the floor, the photograph trembling in her hands. The world narrowed to that red crosshair, that threat, the impossible choice being forced on her. She thought about running, getting on the first flight to Detroit, grabbing her mother, disappearing into another city where no one knew them. But she'd seen enough of Doyen's world to know that running wouldn't work. If someone wanted her gone badly enough to threaten her mother, they'd find them anywhere. For 20 minutes, she sat frozen. Then Jum's morning sounds came through the wall, the small noises he made when he was waking up, calling for her in his limited way. She couldn't let him see her like this. Couldn't let fear win. Bella hid the photograph in her pocket and went to Jum's room. She got him dressed, fed him breakfast, sang the lullabies he loved. But her hands shook on the spoon. Her voice cracked on the high notes. Jum noticed. His small hand reached for her face, concerned. Bella? She forced a smile. I'm okay, baby. Just tired. But she wasn't okay. And by mid-morning, she knew she had to tell Doyen. She found him in his office, staring at reports he wasn't reading. When she knocked, he looked up with an expression that shifted immediately to concern. What's wrong? Bella closed the door behind her. Her hand shook as she pulled out the envelope. Someone left this under my door. Doyen took it, his face hardening as he processed what he was seeing. The photograph. The crosshair. The threat. When he spoke, his voice was cold enough to freeze blood. Who knows you're here? I don't know. I didn't tell anyone except my mother. I didn't... Her voice broke. Mr. Sun, if something happens to her... Nothing will happen to her. Doyen was already on his phone, speaking rapid Korean. Orders, locations, arrangements she couldn't follow. When he finished, he looked at her directly. I'm sending protection to Detroit. 4 men, armed, trained. They'll be at your mother's apartment within 2 hours. I need to leave, Bella said. If I'm gone, they'll... No. The word was absolute. You're not leaving. This is my mother. And this is my problem to solve. Doyen stood, moving around the desk toward her. Someone in my organization leaked information. Someone on my payroll put a target on your mother's back. That means this is an inside threat, and I will handle it. Bella's hands clenched into fists. You can't just decide. I can. And I will. His eyes were hard, but underneath was something else. Fear. You leave now, and Jum loses the only person who's reached him in 3 years. You think I'll let that happen? You think I'll let anyone take you from him? What about what I want? What about my choice? Your choice is to trust me. Doyen's voice softened slightly. I know you don't owe me that trust, but I'm asking for it anyway. Stay. Let me protect your mother. Let me find whoever did this. Bella wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to be anywhere but trapped between these impossible options. But she looked at Doyen's face and saw something she recognized, the desperation of a parent who'd do anything to protect their child. He was protecting Jum, But maybe, she realized, he was also trying to protect her. If anything happens to her— It won't, Doyen promised. I swear to you, Bella, on my son's life, nothing will happen to your mother. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Doyen made more calls. Wonshik appeared within minutes, his face professionally concerned as Doyen showed him the photograph. Find out who did this, Doyen ordered. Check everyone who has access to staff information. Security footage from the past week. I want names by tonight. Yes, sir. Wonshik's eyes flickered to Bella, then away. Should we increase security on the penthouse? Double it. No one gets in without my personal approval. After Wonshik left, Bella said quietly, I should get back to Jum. Wait. Doyen caught her arm gently. I meant what I said. You're not alone in this. Something in his touch, in his voice, made her eyes sting. She'd spent her whole life being alone, figuring things out by herself. Having someone say you're not alone felt like a wound and a healing at the same time. Why do you care? She asked. I'm just the maid. You're not just anything. Doyen's grip tightened slightly. You're the reason my son is speaking. You're the reason I can look at him without drowning in guilt. He stopped, seeming to catch himself. I'm what? You're important, he finished. To this family. Don't forget that. When Bella returned to Jum's room, the boy was agitated. He'd sensed something wrong, the way children do. His hands moved restlessly, his eyes searching her face. Bella scared? He asked in his halting way. She knelt beside him, forcing calm into her voice. A little bit, baby. But I'm okay. Stay? His hand gripped hers. Bella, stay. The question broke her. I'm trying, sweetheart. I'm trying so hard to stay. But even as she said it, Bella felt the walls closing in. Someone wanted her gone badly enough to threaten murder, and no amount of armed guards could change one simple truth. As long as she stayed in this penthouse, her mother was a target. The cost of love, she realized, was sometimes having to choose who to save. And she didn't know if she could make that choice. Doyen's intelligence network moved like a machine. Within 24 hours, his people had traced the envelope's delivery route, pulled security footage from Bella's hallway, and started analyzing communication patterns within his organization. The answer came 2 days after the threat arrived, delivered by a junior lieutenant Doyen had known for 5 years. Sir, the man said, his voice tight with nerves, you need to see this. Doyen looked at the laptop screen. Encrypted messages, decoded by his tech people. Offshore accounts opened 3 weeks ago, meeting locations in Queens warehouses, and one name that appeared in every transaction, every conversation, every piece of evidence. Wonshik. Doyen stared at the screen until the words blurred. His right hand, his brother. The man who'd stood beside him through territorial wars and federal raids. The man he'd trusted with his life, with his operations, with everything that mattered. Betrayal felt like a blade between his ribs, slow and precise. Who else knows? Doyen's voice came out flat. Just me and the tech team, sir. 3 people total. Keep it that way. Doyen closed the laptop. I want surveillance on Wonshik. Everything. Where he goes, who he talks to, what he eats for lunch. I want to know before he knows. Yes, sir. And say nothing. To anyone, especially Wonshik. After the lieutenant left, Doyen sat alone in his office, staring at nothing. 8 years. 8 years of loyalty, partnership, brotherhood, all of it a lie. Or maybe not a lie, maybe just conditional. Loyalty that lasted only as long as Wonshik saw benefit in it. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. The worst part was that Doyen understood it. In this world, ambition was currency. Weakness was death. And Doyen had shown weakness by caring about his son, by letting Bella into their lives, by choosing family over empire even for a moment. Won-shik had seen that weakness and decided to exploit it. Doyen's phone buzzed, a video file from a blocked number. His blood turned cold. The footage showed a warehouse, concrete floors, metal beams, shadows in every corner. In the center, tied to a chair, was an older black woman with silver-threaded hair. She'd been beaten. Her lip was split, one eye swollen shut. But her chin was up, defiant even in restraint. Margaret, Bella's mother. A voice spoke in Korean, the audio distorted. The maid leaves tonight or the mother dies at dawn. No more warnings. The video ended. Doyen was moving before he finished watching. He found Bella in Jum's room, reading from Bora's journal. She looked up when he entered, and whatever she saw in his face made her stand immediately. What happened? He showed her the video, watched the color drain from her face, watched her legs buckle. He caught her before she fell. "Mama?" Bella whispered. "Oh God, Mama." "Listen to me," Doyen said urgently. "I know where they're holding her. I have people tracking the video's origin right now. We will get her back. They said I have to leave tonight." Bella's voice was hollow. "If I don't, you're not leaving. And your mother isn't dying." Doyen's hands gripped her shoulders. "I'm going to end this. All of it. Trust me." But Bella was already shaking her head. "You can't stop them. If they want me gone, the only way to save her is to go." "Bella, I have to." She pulled away from him, her decision made. "I won't let her die because I was too afraid to leave." Doyen wanted to argue, wanted to lock her in the penthouse and solve this his way. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the same strength that had reached his son when no one else could. Bella Atkins didn't run from fear. She ran toward the people she loved. Consequences be damned. "Give me 6 hours," he said. 6 hours before you go anywhere. Let me try." "Doyen." 6 hours, Bella, please." She hesitated, then nodded. 6 hours. Then I'm leaving with or without your permission." After she left, Doyen made a call. "Bring Won-shik to my office. Now." His lieutenant arrived 10 minutes later, concern perfectly painted on his face. "Sir, the video. I saw it. We're working on—" "Sit down." Something in Doyen's tone made Won-shik pause. He sat slowly, his hand moving slightly toward his jacket. Doyen leaned back in his chair, studying the man he'd trusted for 8 years. "How long have you been working with Cheong-san?" Won-shik's face went carefully blank. "Sir? Don't insult me." Doyen's voice was cold. "I know about the meetings, the offshore accounts, the plan to split my territory." He paused. "I know everything." For 3 seconds, Won-shik maintained the pretense. Then his expression shifted, the mask dropping away to reveal something calculating and merciless. "You went soft," Won-shik said simply. "The moment that maid walked in, you stopped being a boss and started being a father. Weakness in this business is death. So you decided to kill me first. I decided to take what should have been mine 8 years ago." Won-shik stood slowly. "You made me your second, but never your equal. Never your partner. I've earned that right." By threatening an innocent woman? Doyen's hand moved toward his desk drawer. By kidnapping a mother to manipulate her daughter? By using the only leverage that works against you now? Won-shik's hand was inside his jacket now, fingers on metal. "You made yourself vulnerable, Doyen. I'm just smart enough to see it." "You're smart enough to die for it." Won-shik drew his weapon. Doyen was faster. The first shot missed. Wonshik dove behind the leather chair. The second shattered the window. Glass exploded inward as armed guards burst through the office door. But Wonshik was already moving, firing twice to cover his escape. Doyun pursued into the hallway, but Wonshik had a head start and knowledge of every exit, every camera blind spot. By the time Doyun reached the emergency stairs, his lieutenant was gone. "Lock down the building," Doyun ordered the guards. "Find him." But he knew Wonshik was already gone, smart, prepared, always 3 moves ahead. The betrayal wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. And Wonshik had planned his escape as carefully as he'd planned the coup. Doyun returned to his office, his phone already ringing with the location trace from the video. A warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Abandoned, isolated, perfect for a hostage situation. He had 3 hours before dawn, before the deadline, before they killed Margaret and forced Bella into whatever trap they'd prepared. 3 hours to wage war. He started making calls, not to Wonshik's crew, they were compromised, but to the men who'd served with him before Wonshik arrived, the ones who'd loved Bora, who'd watched Jum suffer, who'd stayed loyal not out of fear, but out of respect. He needed soldiers he could trust. Because this wasn't just business anymore. This was family. And he'd burn the entire city down before he let them take another person he loved. The warehouse in Red Hook looked abandoned from the outside. Rusted metal, broken windows, decades of neglect. But Doyun's intelligence confirmed what he needed to know. Cheong-san had 12 men inside, armed and expecting trouble. Margaret was being held in the northwest corner, still alive, but injured. Wonshik hadn't been spotted, but his phone had pinged from a location 2 blocks away an hour ago. He was watching, waiting to see how this played out. Doyun assembled his crew in the shadow of a shipping container 300 yards from the warehouse. 8 men, all veterans of territorial wars, all carrying grudges against Cheong-san that went back years. They wore dark clothes and grim expressions, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. Bella insisted on coming. Doyun had tried to refuse, but she'd looked at him with steel in her eyes and said, "That's my mother. I'm not waiting in a car while you decide her fate." Now she stood beside him, wearing a borrowed tactical vest, her hands steady despite the fear he knew she felt. She'd left Jum with the most trusted nurse, kissing him goodbye with promises she might not be able to keep. "When we go in," Doyun said quietly, "you stay behind me. Always. I know how to handle myself. I don't doubt it. But if something happens to you, my son will never forgive me." He paused. "And neither will I." Bella nodded, her jaw tight. Doyun checked his watch. 3 a.m. Dawn was still hours away, but he wasn't waiting for their deadline. The element of surprise was the only advantage he had. He gave the signal. They moved in 3 teams, 2 flanking groups through the side entrances, Doyun's team straight through the front. The warehouse door was locked but not reinforced. One of his men placed a small charge, and the explosion tore through the silence like thunder. Inside was chaos. Cheong-san's men had been expecting an attack, but not this fast, not this aggressive. Doyun's crew moved like a machine, clearing corners with brutal efficiency. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes lighting the darkness. Someone screamed. Metal clanged against concrete. Doyun pushed forward, Bella close behind him. His focus narrowed to one goal: find Margaret. A Cheong-san enforcer appeared from behind a stack of crates, weapon raised. Doyun fired twice. Center mass, clean kill. The man dropped. Bella didn't flinch, stepping over the body without hesitation. She'd seen worse in Detroit, Doyun realized. This world wasn't foreign to her, just a different version of the violence she'd survived before. They found Margaret in a back room, exactly where intelligence said she'd be. She was conscious but weak, blood dried on her temple. When she saw Bella, relief flooded her battered face. "Baby," Margaret whispered. Bella ran to her, working at the ropes binding her wrists. "I'm here, Mama." "I'm here." Doyen covered the door while Bella freed her mother. Outside, the gunfight was intensifying. He could hear his men calling positions, coordinating movements. Cheongsan was outnumbered but not outgunned. Then Wanshik's voice cut through the chaos, amplified by a megaphone from somewhere outside the warehouse. "Doyun, walk out now, and I'll let the women leave alive." Doyun's grip tightened on his weapon. "Get her up," he told Bella. "We're moving." They emerged from the back room into a scene of carnage. Bodies on the floor, 3 of Cheongsan's men, 1 of his own. Blood pooled on concrete. Smoke from discharged weapons hung in the air like fog. Wanshik stood near the main entrance, flanked by 4 Cheongsan enforcers. He held a pistol loosely, pointed at the floor. His expression was calm, almost regretful. "This didn't have to get bloody," Wanshik said in Korean. "You could have stepped down quietly, retired, lived." "Lived as what?" Doyen replied in English, his eyes never leaving his former lieutenant. "A coward? A man who let his second take everything he built? A man who chose his son over his pride." Wanshik switched to English, his accent thicker than Doyen's. "But you couldn't do that, could you? Even now, even with everything falling apart, you have to be the boss. I am the boss. You were the boss." Wanshik raised his weapon. "Now you're just a man protecting a crippled child and a maid who doesn't belong in your world." Behind Doyen, Bella whispered, "I can shoot." "No," Doyen said quietly. "This is mine." He stepped forward, weapon raised. Wanshik's men shifted, ready to fire. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. "You taught me everything," Doyen said. "How to read territory, how to manage operations, how to survive in this world." He paused.